Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. The Afternoon Update with Lynlee Foo.
Money FM 89.3, you're listening to Industry Insight, and I'm Lynlee. Now, we've all experienced the convenience of ordering food or shopping through apps like Grab, Deliveroo, or Shopee. But behind that convenience is a growing tension. Many F&B and retail businesses are losing control of their customer relationships and their margins to these platforms. As consumers, we expect seamless, mobile-first experiences. But for most businesses, the digital gap remains wide. So how can they close it? And what's at stake if they don't? Joining me to unpack this is David Brunier, founder and CEO of Cata, a retail technology company helping F&B and retail operators reclaim their customers in the digital age. David, a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, let's start with an overview. You know, consumers, we're so used to the kind of digital convenience that Starbucks or McDonald's deliver. But most smaller retailers are still relying on offline processes. So why has this digital gap remained so wide?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and you completely nailed it. We as customers, we're just used to having these digital experiences in any part in our lives. But to be fair, it's really not so easy for medium chains, smaller chains, but even larger chains to be fully tech-enabled. And nowadays, it's just costing a lot of money to build consumer apps that have a certain level of functionality and capabilities. So even if you wanted to have a fantastic consumer app as a bigger chain, you would have to probably spend millions, like a Starbucks or a McDonald's that you mentioned would be able to spend. And there's a massive issue with that, of course, if you don't have these kind of budgets, because return on investment will be quite limited.
Okay, so in a way, consumers have leapfrogged ahead, but many businesses are still stuck catching up.
Yeah, the customers basically even expect it, but the businesses, they haven't found a way to make that happen.
Okay, let's talk about these platforms, delivery aggregators and online marketplaces. They've become the go-to for many businesses. But what does it mean long-term if retailers don't own the customer relationship directly?
I think these delivery providers are, of course, fantastic. They're bringing additional business to the restaurant chains and smaller restaurants. I mean, the issue with it is that these restaurants, these retailers don't really own their data. They don't know their customers.
That's right.
And so in the long term, they get incredibly dependent on these major players and their goodwill, and obviously their ability also to monetize on that.
So doesn't that weaken competitiveness?
Well, it weakens competitiveness incredibly, because you're basically not the person on the steering wheel if you're waiting for a major aggregator to send a push notification to customers telling them about your brand. You're basically one brand out of many, tens of thousands probably on these platforms per market. And yes, that does limit the opportunities that you have to be very competitive.
David, you mentioned data. Now, we hear a lot about how data is the new oil, but in practical terms, what kind of insights can retailers actually gain if they control that data?
So imagine having your own app like the one that we with Cata are providing. And if you then have these customer data on that app as a retailer, you suddenly understand and own your customer. What that means is that you suddenly know their preferences. So you can send them much, much better and more customized offerings. You can let them know about the newest items that you've just published, or like a new menu item, for example, that you've launched. You can tell them about relevant discounts or other offers of that type. You also understand your own business better because you know which items are working well, which are not. Maybe you change something in a recipe and suddenly people rate the product a little bit lower than they used to, or they stopped ordering a certain item. So there's just so much data that you're suddenly able to see, understand, and gain insights from, that it's really eye-opening and opening a new world of being able to scale your business going forward.
And basically, without that, you're essentially flying blind.
You're entirely blind. And that's the harsh reality of all retailers, and not just restaurants, but basically this whole industry that is traditionally offline is flying blind. It's, I think, more than time for that to change.
Okay. Traditionally, developing an app was something only global giants could afford. But now we're seeing the rise of white label SaaS solutions, software as a solutions that claim to level the playing field. Why is this shift so significant for the industry?
That's a fantastic question. I think the major barrier to entry right now for all of these players is a mix of cost. So building such kind of apps is incredibly expensive, especially because customers are already used to very strong apps like the likes of Grab and Foodpanda and what they're all called in the different markets. So in order to launch an app that customers really love, you have to spend a lot of money. And that typically can be in the millions just to get started. And then you haven't even thought about maintenance and like improving your product, these kind of things. So that's one part. The other part is that typically you just lack the experience in-house. If you're, let's say you're fantastic in baking pizza, then typically your number one capability is not in technology and how to build complex products, right? So that's another piece. And then it takes long to build it. So you might want to start now, but then in order to launch it might take a year or two to have something very basic, which then ultimately customers might not love. And then what you have in a market is very fragmented tools. So you might have a loyalty tool or you might have a CRM tool, which basically means you can send messages to customers. But you never have something that's a one-stop shop. And that's what we're providing. Why SaaS is so important is because we're able to democratize this really premium technology, and we're able to give it to smaller players who would never have the chance to build it in-house or give these kind of products to an agency to build.
And they're able to launch their own branded apps in days.
Yes, I think that's the fantastic update on that. An app like the one that we're providing would typically take years to build, and it has, to be fair. But the retailers that we're working with can literally launch their own fully branded apps with their own menus and their own customized loyalty programs and CRM and payments and everything just in a matter of days. And that's revolutionary.
And this is with or without upfront investment?
That's entirely without upfront investment. So we're basically taking the magic and the barriers to entry out of that complex product type. So you don't have to invest upfront, and also you don't need to know anything about coding. And I think that is an incredible piece of information as well. Just because you can use it, anyone can use it in your team without any issues.
Amazing, David. Let's zoom out a little bit. How does this transformation compare across regions? Is Southeast Asia moving fast enough compared to places like Europe or North America?
I think so. I think what we notice is that globally there's a massive consumer shift happening, that people really start enjoying exploring product, purchasing products on their mobile phones. It's something that they want to have in their hands. They're not queuing in front of a self-checkout terminal and with 10 people behind you and getting all nervous. And I think we've all probably seen that situation. They want to have that experience in their hand. And we see that globally, meaning it's a very relevant piece of technology wherever we go. But we also see the major guys in China showing us the way. And look at a player like Luckin Coffee with more than 30,000 outlets and being app only. And it's very obvious that it's happening. And I think Asia, and especially Southeast Asia, is more than ripe for that transition.
Fantastic. But of course, there are barriers too. So what's holding retailers back from adopting digital tools more widely?
I think it's really the problem that no one has been able to make this piece of technology simple to use and affordable enough to use it. So it's basically missing out on digital superpowers to scale your business, to protect your business against competitors that you're simply not able to because it has been too complicated to launch and too expensive, and also would take too much time. And as a retailer, you just have to spend your time and invest your time on the actual business. You have to make sure your customers are happy and your food is incredible and the products that you're launching are well adopted. So it has been very, very tough for this retailer to do so. That has now changed with Cata.
And I think for many, it's also a mindset shift, right? They've been doing business a certain way for so long, for decades, and change does take time.
Yes, you're right. So we can accelerate it a little bit.
Okay, David, you've launched in Singapore before. In fact, you co-founded Flash Coffee in Singapore before it expanded across the region. So from that experience, what role do you think Singapore plays in shaping or testing new retail technologies?
Yeah, so when we started Flash Coffee, we really realized early that we wanted to give customers a digital experience. And we looked into the market, and I think I was naive about it. I thought we'd just find a SaaS player out there that could give us an incredible product. But the sobering truth was that we didn't even find a bad player that could give us a product. We just found none. Okay. And so back then we decided to just build it in-house for our own sake and have this fantastic piece of technology. And the Singaporeans have always loved the tech and the convenience that comes with it. And at the same time, we had lots of different major players reach out to us and say, can we please have that piece of technology? Can we get a license? Can we even buy the technology or the tech stack? And I think having customers reach out to us and ask for it just drove the decision that we're going to empower up-and-coming players with technology going forward. And Singapore is just the perfect place to do it.
Well, it sounds like this whole experience showed you both the opportunities as well as the gaps in digital adoption.
Yeah, it's really a product that is made by operators for operators. So we're not the typical tech company or an agency that is getting a brief and then is building a product, but we're really operators ourselves. We know the pain that comes with operating businesses. We understand the nitty-gritty pieces that customers are expecting for F&B. And that I think has made it much, much easier for us to build a product that customers really love and show incredible traction so far.
Wonderful. So that perspective comes not just from theory, but actually having navigated Singapore's consumer market and competitive landscape directly.
Yes, absolutely. And there's so many learnings that we've been able to leverage on that front. And I think that's also one of the reasons why we're not the typical small startup that is starting out with a few small restaurants, but we really started working with incredible and pretty large and well-known players from day one, because they're trusting us and our expertise. Example is Guzman e-commerce here in Singapore. We absolutely love these guys and they're doing a really, really good job. And we just launched the app with them and they're doing incredibly well.
Wonderful. Now, before we let you go, let's look ahead. 5 years from now, what do you think the customer experience will look like? Will manual processes still exist or will they fade out completely?
Oh, I love it. I mean, 5 years from now is a long time. There's lots of stuff happening when it comes to technology as we speak, and also how consumers are interacting with brands. How we see the future is that people will not queue in front of outlets any longer. There are likely no physical POS terminals any longer, so you wouldn't stand with a cashier who's manually inputting your order to then have it printed in some printer in the back of the restaurant. I think this is all moving online, and customers are really starting to reap the benefits of this digital experience. So you would see a massive shift in digitalization across the board in all kinds of retail, especially in F&B, but also everything else that's currently offline. We've seen it in all other industries, and now this traditionally offline industry is ripe for change.
I'm feeling a bit sad about it now, but surely there will always be a place for personal human interactions?
I think actually there will be more of it, because suddenly people in the restaurants don't have to focus on the manual job at stake. It's much more investing time into the customer relationship. So I think what you'll see is an increased and further improved customer relationship happening, because the cashiers, etc., will not have to take orders manually and do changes and refunds and these kind of things.
I see. So the future isn't about replacing human touches. It's about enhancing it with data and digital tools.
Yeah, exactly. It's about empowering the people with additional insights, additional tools, and additional convenience, and making the overall customer experience even better. It's not about replacing people at all.
David, thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you so much for having me.
He is David Brunier, founder and CEO of Cata, part of the new wave of retail tech companies helping to transform offline retail. You've been listening to Industry Insight on Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.